Hey guys, Pilcrow here, and today we're going to be ranking all Phase 1 Tpot episodes. So yeah, Phase 1 episodes are between 1 and 11. So any episodes after that I won't be ranking, maybe another time, who knows. Also, before we start this video, remember, this is my opinion. You don't need to take it too seriously, and you can always leave your own opinion in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe, and let's start. So I'm going to do this in the numerical order of the release. So the first episode I'm going to rank is Tpot 1. And yeah, I don't think Tpot 1 was that bad for a starting episode. I will say, Tpot 1 is absolutely not as memorable as BFB 1. As for the debuts, winner was obvious, they were obviously going to join, and price tag was okay. I'm confident they always planned for 2 contestants to join, so that way one could be winner, which is the contestant they really wanted to join, and another completely new character. I also really liked seeing all the teams form. That was easily the best part of the episode, especially with Snowball towards the end. That was pretty fun. Now, how about the challenge? Well, it was pretty basic. However, I'll let it slide because it was the very first episode. And yeah, it was pretty enjoyable for a first challenge. Remote was amazing in Tpot 1. This episode was easily her best episode in Tpot. And yeah, there were a bunch of other moments in this episode that were really cool and I liked seeing. As for Death Pact again being the loser here, I think it was deserved. Death Pact hadn't lost since BFB 4, so yeah, it was very long overdue. I did wish this episode was a little longer, that way we could have fleshed out more of the characters, but overall, this was a very great episode. Easily an 8 out of 10. Well done, Tpot 1. Now let's get on to Tpot 2, and this episode took a year and a half to come out. And let's talk about the thing I liked least about the episode. Teardrop joining. Just why? She already made it extremely far in BFB, and got a lot of development in that same season. If any of the BFB post-split characters should have joined Tpot, it should be Balloony, not Teardrop. So yeah, that was very disappointing. Something that wasn't disappointing though is Pi getting eliminated in this episode. And yeah, everybody saw Pi getting eliminated. Nobody is surprised by this result. And while I'm not a Pi hater, this was definitely the best result of this elimination. The challenge was overall very good. There was a lot of moments, and stacking blocks is simple, which means you have a lot of options. Black Hole sucking up all his team's blocks, which forced them to steal other blocks. Golf Ball with her whole stability thing, and Pin accusing her team of cheating. And lastly, before we're done with this episode, I want to talk about Two's talk with Gady. And it was good. It started their friendship, which would be obviously extremely important later. So yeah, this episode's very good. A 10 out of 10. I just wish it didn't take so unbelievably long to release. But now we've reached it, the dark age of Tpot. Let's start with one of the most hated episodes, Tpot 3. And first of all, this episode is way too short. 22 minutes was just not enough time for everything to get done, and it just led to a lot of things feeling rushed, which is an absolutely insane thing to say because this episode took 7 whole months to release. In this episode, there are about 3 important things that happen. The whole Puffball generating a roller coaster thing, which would start her arc with Golf Ball, which would end in a friendship. Clock forcing Winner to perform on the stage, which was so stupid. They already had Yellowface to do the job. There was no reason why they needed Winner. And yeah, Winner obviously disagreed with this idea and made them lose the challenge. And lastly, we have the start of double eliminations, which would basically go on for the rest of Tpot. And yeah, we just needed to do double eliminations. There was no way we were going to have 40 episodes. Actually, we were probably going to have even more than 40 episodes. So yeah, this episode does suck a little because it's so short and it started Tpot's dark era. It also started a lot of good things in Tpot. So I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. It still underperformed as a Tpot episode, and I think it could have been way better, but I don't think it's as bad as people are saying. Now let's go to Tpot 4, and yeah, I have no idea what happened in this episode. This episode is completely forgettable, and that's because nothing happens. The challenge was that we needed to save the funny plant, which they didn't save the plant, and yeah, we just spent 30 minutes doing absolutely nothing. There is one thing I will give this episode though. They started the new Cake at Stake song. That's one of the few things this episode did right. As for Saw and Cloudy being eliminated, I wasn't too sad. I was saddened to see Cloudy go, but not insanely sad. But overall, yeah, this was just a really poorly done episode. So this episode will get a 5 out of 10. It really just wasn't that good. Now let's get on to Tpot 5, and let's start the elimination. Remote getting out was extremely saddening to hear. She had so much potential, and she just lost it because the writers didn't want to do anything with her. As for Nelly, it was whatever. She kind of had it coming, and she didn't really do anything anything in Tpot. Her making the team lose, though, basically secured her fate. I will give this episode one thing. The challenge was actually interesting. I especially liked the strongest team on Earth this episode, and overall, this episode was way better than Tpot 4. The whole plate challenge was really funny, and it was just so Tpot, and the fish monster appeared, which is absolutely awesome. So yeah, this episode gets a 7 out of 10. Still Dark Age, but not that bad. We're officially halfway with Tpot 6, and I'm gonna rank this one pretty fast because this was the very first meetup episode. And overall, I never really liked this episode. The only good team was Just Not because they were the ones fighting the dragon. Also, I didn't know Tree canonically has a treehouse. That was pretty funny. But outside of those two things, this episode was pretty underwhelming overall. Especially considering that this was a meetup episode, yeah, I can't say it was too strong. So I'm going to rate Tpot 6 as 6.5 out of 10. There were some good moments, but it was just overall not interesting. Now let's go to the episode that changed Tpot by far the most. We have Tpot 7, and yup, it made Tpot way better overall. Tpot 7 was such a game changer. It started two massive arcs with the Robot Flower arc and the more popular Death Pact Again arc, which both greatly influenced the season. And this episode just had a more serious tone that the other episodes in this season just didn't have. Also, I loved seeing Robot Flower going absolutely insane by trapping the failed debuters on the roof. That was really funny. This was also the first episode that Price Tag had a meaningful role, one that I remember at least. And yeah, every single team did something. There was no team that felt left out or didn't really do that much. Every team was important in this episode, which is really good. So yeah, I'm gonna give this episode a 10 out of 10. Also, before we stop talking about this episode, you cannot forget to mention that crazy elimination scene. That was easily Lightning's best scene by far and is still probably the best elimination to this day. Now let's go on to Tpot 8, and it's really short, and overall it was a nice follow-up to Tpot 7. However, it didn't really add anything of its own value. The only thing I really remember is Donut losing his arms, and Yellowface was also fun this episode too. However, it didn't really need its own thing. Tpot 7 was a nice place to start, and it just followed up on that episode pretty well. However, it was really short. I kind of wish it was a little longer. So I'm going to give this episode a 7.5 out of 10. Not too bad, but not too great either. Alright, we have Tpot 9, and yeah, this episode was insanely good. The zombie challenge was so fun and creative, and this might be the first and only episode where Barf Bag is actually somewhat important. There's a lot of reasons to like this episode, and yeah, it was just the overall tone and vibe of the episode that just feels completely different from every other Phase 1 episode. This is also the only episode where the majority of the events take place at night. So yeah, this is getting a 10 out of 10, and to this day, it's still one of the most liked Tpot episodes. However, Tpot 10 is also amazing. It ended the Death Pact Again arc and was overall a great way to end Phase 1 teams. It also ended Barf Bag's little mini arc going on because she was embarrassed that she started the plague. Overall, the challenge was fun, Nickel's elimination was dramatic, and Robot Flower was overall really good as usual. So this episode gets a 10 out of 10 as well. Now on to our last Phase 1 episode, we have Tpot 11. And yes, this is a part of Phase 1. Tpot 12 started Phase 2, which means Tpot 11 is still technically in Phase 1. To be honest, I never really cared about Tpot 11 that much. Not that it's a bad episode, but I wasn't interested in the Exiters, since I didn't really care about most of them. But yeah, this episode was pretty funny, and it basically started all non-competition episodes in Tpot and BFDIA, which most of them are pretty good. So while this episode is the shortest in Tpot, I think it's overall not a bad episode. I do wish Pencil's arc was a bit more hinted at, since if you look at her throughout the episode, it doesn't look like she's crazily distressed like she is in Tpot, and I did wish the Dora 8-Ball Fiery Jr. group got more screen time. However, this episode wasn't too bad, so it'll get a 7 out of 10. Do you agree with my rankings? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, go subscribe to my gaming channel, and have a good one.